Namaskar, good evening, Adab. In the Hindu tradition, gods and goddesses dance as a way of expressing the dynamic energy of life. The image of Nataraj represents the god of gods as the lord of the dance, choreographing the eternal dance of the universe. But at the same time, Shiva, the Nataraj, is also the Yogi Raj, the consummate yogi who is said to have created more than 8 lakh asanas. Whether one is a dancer who reveres the divine origins of their dances, which were revealed to the Bharat Muni and transcribed by him in Natya Shastra, or whether one is a simple yogi believing yoga is the journey of self, to the self, through the self, for the self, there is an understanding of a strong connection between dance and yoga. In today's session, we talk about this self-healing paradigm that sits on the cusp of dance and yoga. The book titled Illuminating Indian Classical Dances Through Yoga has been co-authored by 2 gorgeous women, the icons who are gurus in their fields. We have with us Padmashri Shovana Narayan, the leading Kathak exponent, former bureaucrat, and the dance guru to thousands across the world. And we also have with us Anita Dua, who is a yoga enthusiast, educationist, a disciple of leading yoga master BKS Iyengar. Using about 100 photographs, the author duo has tried to demonstrate the interconnection of yoga and nritya, 2 disciples from ancient culture. And by highlighting, researching, examining the asanas and mudras that are practiced in both dance and yoga, they have also tried to trace the progression of Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, the focal point of the book. We'll begin with a question-answer session initially, which will be followed by an open house discussion, and we'll wrap the session with a small 10 to 15 minutes performance by the disciples of Shovana ji and Anita ji. First things first, ma'am. Shovana ji, you have already authored several books. There's so many books to your credit. When and why did you think about penning the book on yoga and dance, and how did it come to you?
Well, to begin with, anyone who knows me would have always heard me say, you know, dance is yoga. When people ask me, do you do any special yoga in the morning,
right,
exercises? So I said, no, I just dance. I do my dance riyaz. So they said, why? Why no yoga? I said, because for me, dance is yoga. When I've always been saying that, and people have always wondered, why the hell am I saying it and how does it? Because, you know, yoga has a certain image of sitting down and doing all the asanas. So I said, we are doing all the asanas, and we are, and then pranayam, aise karo, you know, Kapal Bhati and Bhatrika and all that. I said, hum to wo karte hi hai. So, then this publisher of mine said, why don't you pen it down?
Right.
And I sort of, and then finally I did. And that was how, because for us, when I say dance is yoga, why the hell do I say it? And that is because when we are looking at Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, now you have the yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, pratyahar, dhyana, dhans, and samadhi. Now, we go through everything. Agar yam nahi hai, the discipline nahi hai, and there are no rules and regulations, how can you dance? Because the entire thing is composed, every aspect, and you'll see it later on, that how each and every aspect we are practicing. Then, of course, asana is the most visual part of it. That is what strikes the eye. But then you have so many other aspects. And asanas, the only difference is that in yoga, all the asanas are done at a steady pace.
Right.
And whereas we do all the asanas, but it goes in quick succession without anybody realizing that we have moved from one asana to the other. And which, when you had just talked about Nataraj, you said he was
Consummate yogi.
the Adi Dev and the ultimate yogi, Mahayogi. Now, the 108 karnas, we are actually practicing all those. And in fact, I would say 60 to 70%, because if you're taking the Vrishchatka or the Shishasana, it doesn't look, it doesn't sort of gel with a classical dancer doing it, except in Gotipua dances. They do it. And, and then pranayama. You'll also see that when we are performing, every aspect, and particularly in Kathak, you'll notice that we perform, do the nritya, and which is very energetic. Then we come back immediately, and then we have to recite the next pattern. Now, when you're reciting the next pattern, you can't be panting. You just can't be panting. I mean, you've had it if you panted. And so, now what does it show? That you are practicing pranayama to its actual level. You know what it is. And so on. And besides also, for me it is dance. All the three aspects of yoga, which is karma yoga, bhakti yoga, or jnana yoga. All the three aspects are absolutely encapsulated in dance. Because karma to hai hai, kar hi rahe. Bhakti, because everything we are dedicating to God, as well as when you're thinking of Jnana Yoga, that Jnana, in fact, it is also mentioned in the Natya Shastra in the first chapter, verse 10, that when people had gone astray, so Brahma was asked, ki aap, please give something, how do you bring people back onto the rails, to put it. And so he says, take something which is audio-visual. And that is how, and then through that you spread the message of values. So Gyan jo hai, you are automatically. So all the three are encapsulated, and that's why.
So if I ask you, is yoga a chapter in the theory class of dance? Officially?
No, I mean not as a separate chapter, but when we are teaching, when the girls are practicing or the boys are practicing, we keep talking about it. We keep, so it is a practical intake, give and take, you know, sort of telling them what you're doing is this, what you're doing is that. Both about the Karanas, you know, the Natya Shastras, as well as the yoga part of it.
All right, thank you. Anita, I'm intrigued to ask you, penning the research part of the yoga so that it commensurates with dance is not easy. So both of you work together on it. How difficult was doing research with respect to merging the concepts of dance with yoga for you?
Well, talking about research, the best subject would be ourselves. She's been doing, Shovana ji has been doing dancing for years, and I've been doing yoga for about 35 years now. So the best subjects are ourselves to research this particular topic. And where we're going wrong is the definition of yoga. Yoga is not really asana, so which is what we associate yoga with, that yoga means just the physical postures. So when we talk about yoga, actually it's not physical postures, that's the third limb of yoga. So, well, I must go back to the roots of yoga.
Please tell us, yes.
Just to sort of put it in a proper perspective, which is that it's as you know, both the sciences, both the disciplines of dance and yoga, the very, very ancient, one of the ancient disciplines that we've had, and both are spiritual disciplines. It's only now that the science, earlier everything had origin to spirituality. We know that very well. Even the wars were fought in the name of God. It's only now that science has come into forefront, and there's this distinction saying that yoga and science is also an art, as well as art and science, performing art, both.
Right.
So both the disciplines have their roots in the Vedic Shastras, Natya Shastras, and then we have Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which date back to more than 2,000 years ago. So they're very, very ancient and wise sciences with their deep spiritual roots. So when we say yoga, yoga is a way of, it's a huge, it's sort of when you have union, self with Supreme or Atma with Jivatma. So according to our Eastern philosophy, they say you needn't really strive for this union because it already exists. So to say that mind, body and cosmos is divisible, they say is a universal error. So what are we talking about? If you take I from your self, it's only consciousness, which is Sat Chit Anand. That's the state of bliss, truth and consciousness. So in that sense, all of us are practicing yoga because that's what we are. Now the only difference here is a method which was outlined by Patanjali is called Ashtanga Yoga. It's a method through which 8 stages through which a dancer progresses as she goes through a dance, and through which all of us in various our respective professions, we also progress through those 8 limbs of yoga, which I think Shovana ji is already outlined very briefly, is yama, practice, niyama is the discipline. Nothing is possible without discipline. And then we come to asanas, which is what we are talking about. A common man's, layman's language of yoga is just doing asanas, which is the 3rd limb. But we have to have discipline, we have to have practice to reach anywhere, in any discipline, be it teaching, be it painting, be it any profession. So coming to asanas, that only makes your body fit because you have to reach your ultimate aim of samadhi and salvation and moksha. So after asanas, of course, comes the pranayam, which is the 4th limb, and that's to do with your breathing. Unless your breathing is balanced, you're unwell. You're not balanced human being. When you get cold and other things, you have imbalance. So we have various breathing techniques in yoga which restore your breathing to a balanced breathing so that it flows through both Ida and Pingala in the center, and you have your centering of thoughts. So everything is to do with the breathing. We know that. When we are running, we are angry, we are hot-tempered, we are short-tempered, we are breathing very fast, we are panting. But when we are calm, we are breathing very, very nicely. It's a deep, relaxed breathing. So, and then of course we come to pratyahara, where it's a withdrawal of senses. You kind of look inwards and realize who you are. And then of course dhyana and samadhi. Dharana, dhyana and samadhi, which is, dharana is concentration, extended concentration, and finally reaching salvation. So research is what you're doing as a subject on yourself. And when we started talking about a book with Shovana, I realized there's so much in common in both the disciplines. One is not possible without another. And like I emphasized earlier, it's not only dance, it's the other things also which have elements of yoga present in them. So research was more, both of us as subjects talking to each other. And we have practiced, she has practiced for years, 50 years. When she was 3, she took to dancing.
That's right.
And I took to yoga when I was in my early 20s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Both of you started so
we
young.
are the subjects of research ourselves. Really
Very
speaking.
well put.
Yeah, the health, the well-being, how fit she is after having gone through so many medical problems. She's a living example of yoga and dance.
Absolutely.
So
to understand the concept further, the 8 limbs of yoga that we talk about, let me ask you one by one each limb, and I would request each one to respond by giving us one simple example from the daily practice in your discipline. For instance, when I say yam, what does yam in dance mean to you? What does yam in yoga mean to you? In just one line. I mean, let's not with the help of a very simple daily life example so that all of us can understand and relate to the concept. So what is yam in dance?
Yam is practice and tapasya.
Yam in dance for you, Shovana ji.
Tapasya.
For us, yam is of course when you start, the first thing, when jab aap sankalp le rahe hain.
Ji.
Or, then you decide and then you go into it. So you're automatically taking in and making a, sort of the first stage.
Yes.
The first stage. So that is it. So that's sankalp.
I can read the joy on your face when you say that. And niyam.
I would also like to mention, just to add, that when we are talking about yoga and yuj together, she did mention that about the harmony, about the mental, physical, and the spiritual harmony. I'd like to quote one beautiful Sanskrit shlok. I just love it, and I thought I would share that. It says that if you do not have that balance and harmony within yourself, I mean, you're destroying your own life. And it says that chintayascha, chitayascha, Chintayascha chitayascha bindu matram vishishyate. चिंता और चिता में एक बिंदु का फर्क है सिर्फ. चिंता means worries and thoughts and all kind of thing, and chita is a corpse, a dead body. There's when you're writing it in Devanagari in Sanskrit, there's only the difference of one dot. Chinta yascha chita yascha bindu matram vishishyate. Chita dahati nirjeevam. That means the chitta is burnt by, it gets consumed in the flames. Chinta dahati jivanam. And so, and if you are sort of involved in everything and you are completely a disoriented person and not at peace within yourself, not at harmony within yourself, you are consumed by the flames of disharmony. So it's a very beautiful piece that which the Sanskrit shloka.
So, and what is niyam in yoga?
Discipline.
Simple discipline.
Simple discipline.
To follow a disciplined regime every day from morning to
Absolutely.
night.
There has to be a fixed time for everything in life, and that's what leads you from darkness to light. It's discipline.
Niyam in dance would be?
Niyam in dance. Now, there is a niyam in dance of life. That you have to have discipline in life. That is one. Niyam in learning. That is of intake. And which means that, or even in the matter of dance itself, that you have to learn what to do, how to do.
Right.
There is a niyam. If there is a tala, a lay, there is a niyam to it. How do you progress? There's a niyam to it. How the movements move, there is a niyam to it.
So
everything has discipline.
Yes.
And also your behavior pattern is discipline. Even a guru giving to a disciple, there is a certain discipline.
Of course.
And the disciple receiving from the guru
Is all. So lovely. What asana in yoga? What is that?
All right. So asana is the fourth limb of Ashtanga Yoga, as I explained. They're the physical postures. We do believe that if there is a physical imbalance, it leads to mental imbalance. So by practicing these physical postures or asanas, we restore that balance and we create harmony of body, mind, and soul eventually. So it needs a constant practice. And asana is described as sukham shariram sthiram. Asana is that which is steady, has a sense of ease, and gives you happiness. So these are the postures which were never really codified earlier by Patanjali. They evolved over the years. So it is the result of the tapasya of many, many yogis. Of course, as you mentioned that Shiva, Adi Yogi, he was known as, so he's Lord of Dance, Supreme Lord of Dance, but also known as Adi Yogi, was the first yogi who propounded yoga as well as dance. So after that, it's the postures as we see today have evolved over the years. And it's the results of, I would say, tapasya of many, many yogis. And one such yogi was my guru, who was B.K.S. Iyengar. In Pune, from whom I learnt yoga. I had the good fortune of being his neighbor when my husband was posted in Pune. So I knew him, we knew him very well. And I think he was true yogi of our time who took the yoga in 1950s, other than Dharendra Brahmachari, somebody was mentioning the other day also. So he was the one who was responsible for taking yoga to the West those days. Yoga was once a very niche practice. It's not what it is today, which is practiced by millions of people world over, thanks to our Prime Minister who's made a Yoga International Day so popular. But it wasn't always like that. There were only select few who practice yoga. So when I'm reminded of a story which Guruji used to tell us those days. So he said when he went to London in 1954 and he was stopped at the immigration and he was asked as to what his profession was. And he said yogi. So the immigration officer looked a little puzzled and said, oh, okay, yogi, does that mean that you can walk on fire, swallow blades and chew glasses? So that's how they thought the yogis were those days, they could walk through fire, walk on water. But that is not the way we understand yoga today. So it's something which everybody is practicing. It's meant for everyone. There's no age, there's no time.
Yeah.
It's a secret of good health and happiness.
Yeah. We understand what asana in dance is. We also can appreciate what pranayam, you already explained that, pratyahar, dharana and dhyan. We can understand all of that, but I come to the trickiest part. What is samadhi in dance?
Let me first go to dhyan also.
All right, please do.
And particularly when we are thinking of dhyan, again, the common man's image of dhyan is that a yogi is sitting over here and doing and meditating. But there's something known as kriya dhyan. And if you see Buddha's life, and all those days when he was in Bodh Gaya, he was not just sitting. He was walking up and down, but yet meditating. His chores were going on, but he was meditating. That's known as Kriya Dhyan, and even today in Buddhism, you'll find that the monks are dancing when they're performing, it's Kriya Dhyan. And in our dance, we are also practicing that. And I'll give you one example, particularly in Kathak. When we are doing tatkar, which means just footwork. Of course, today people look at it as a chamatkar, as a virtuous element. And ye kya banaya, ye wo. But I remember even as a child, and I still, when we are practicing, that when you get into that, just a nadindinna, and you're doing it, you start hearing music. You go into that state of Kriya Dhyan, where you start hearing music. And I remember that our gurus of yore would always tell us कि ऐसा करो कि उसमें संगीत सुनाई पड़े, उसके अंदर वो ऐसा ध्यान करो कि संगीत सुनाई पड़े. तो जब आपको संगीत, when you start hearing music within yourself, you are reaching that state. Coming to samadhi, that is the state when you lose yourself completely. The dance is here and the dancer normally is here. But when the dancer becomes the dance, and you, both for the performer and for the rasika, that means for the people watching, that is the point of when you lose track of what is what, because both merge into each other. The art and the dancer merges because when the dancer has left the ego behind, the self behind. It merged with the dance and elevated herself or himself to another level, and so has the rasika. And that is the point when the dancer becomes the dance. That is the point of samadhi.
But Shovana ji, in yoga, there is no point of return after samadhi. I mean, samadhi is the penultimate state of one's being. Once anyone has attained samadhi, probably there's no going back from there. But in dance, I think one keeps meandering between, dance and the dancer and dance and the dancer, and it goes on and on and on. So is it a point of no return?
No. It is a point of no return because there are so many times. I'll give you my own personal example. There's so many times when we perform, and you ask any artist, us samay, at that point of time, what they are doing, they do not know. And the kind of improvisation, the creativity which goes forth, and then you ask them later, and ask us later, what have you done? We say, we don't know. Because it was a moment.
Okay.
And I'll talk about my own self. I was performing, and maybe somebody in the audience who may have seen me way back in the 80s performing at, it was in Fiki auditorium that I remember. And my tika got loose.
Okay.
And it started banging against my eye.
All right.
And it was bleeding. And I just didn't realize, like this, and we went on. Till somebody from the audience got up, came and stopped me and put a little bandage over there. Just a little plaster over there. So, but that you don't hear it.
What a perfect example.
So many times when the ghungroos have cut into our skin, and that has happened to many Kathak dancers. When our 200 ghungroos on each ankle, when it has just cut into our skin and we are bleeding over there, but we don't realize it at that time. You only feel it half an hour after you come off the stage. But at that point of time, you are in that
state of ultimate
the
dhyan and
ultimate,
samadhi.
whatever it is. And it has happened to most of the Kathak dancers.
If I were to ask
Or
you,
to other dancers, or of different classical dance forms.
Right.
Because that is an experience we all go through.
beautiful example. Anita ji, if I were to ask you, which is better? I mean, who is better? A dancer who is a yogi or a yogi who's a dancer? I tricked her.
That's not fair. But I want to add something to what Shovana ji said. When as a dancer, you're transported to the world when you have that samadhi-like experience. It's not only the dancer, it's also the audience, which is so absorbed in that performing art that they also feel that ecstasy. So that's the difference.
Yeah.
When we do yoga, we do it for ourselves. You know, it's not really entertainment, and the benefits will flow to me. If you have to have benefit from yoga, you have to do it yourself. I can't do it for you. But when dancer is dancing, she's dancing not only for herself, but also for you.
No, it's not entertainment. It is not entertainment.
That's for you to reach your state
That
of
is,
samadhi
yes,
as well.
exactly, because you are
Yes,
taking the audience along
ultimate.
to reach that, to elevate
Ultimate,
themselves.
exactly. That happens. Seeing her, you also get lost in your own little word of bliss, Satchidanand, and experience that Anand.
You know,
so what was the
that
question
reminds
you were
me.
asking me?
That reminds me of one incident. I'm talking about '96, the Kathak Mahotsav at Kamani Auditorium. Many dancers have gone through it, but I was doing a piece. I'll talk, and it was a very evocative, but so much so that people were crying in the audience because it was an extremely sad piece. And even the Kamani ka parda wala stopped. I forgot to even put down the parda. And Sadhana Srivastav, who was announcing, she was sobbing away, and later on she took time to compose herself to come back and say something on stage.
That's the power.
So that is the power of, any performing art, because you are also taking the audience along with you to elevate.
But,
So she's the true yogi. So that's true yogi, actually. Being a true yogi
Right.
means
But Anita
getting
ji, I think
absorbed in whatever you're doing.
you very subtly
And,
brought out a very pertinent point while answering my question, which is that when a yogi is performing yoga, the entire energy is redirected towards the inner self. However, when a dancer performs dance on stage, the energy is directed outwards, so in to say that the dancer gets in connect with the reaction of the audience. So it is also to please the audience, entertain the audience, and somehow, to change the rhythm of the dance based on how the audience would accept the art.
No. The dancer does what they have to, they do.
You would not.
We don't change it according to the
No,
audience.
no.
Sorry.
And is it
Sorry.
never to please
No,
the audience also?
We don't, because if I'm a classical dancer,
Right.
I am not going to, even if the audience wants some X popular number, why? No, I will not. Because we are performing for our, for God.
Right.
Ours is devotional, and every classical artist, be a singer or an instrumentalist or a dancer,
So essentially, you perform for yourself.
we are essentially
Divinity in you, you
for
perform.
the inner journey, and in that inner journey, our vibrations, the kind of we exude, also draws them together. So,
Right. And Anita ji, both dance and yoga are somewhere connected to the element of spirituality. So if one was to be an atheist, not a believer in God, not a believer in religion or spirituality for that matter, would the person be a good yogi or a good dancer?
Absolutely. It's not really a spiritualism, in the sense that it's something which you experience. Call it being one with the cosmos, call it shades of samadhi or dhanna, dhyana, but it's something, those of you who practice yoga or have been doing it would know that it is what happens when you do yoga. Okay, I need to go back to those 8 chakras and to explain, because I used to wonder, it was something which I did for a year, I took it up as something which was so convenient to do because it just happened to be in the neighborhood. But when I did it for a year, I realized that it's done something wonderful to me. I mean, I've not fallen ill, I've had no problems of any sort, and I'm smiling and I'm happy. Why am I happy? There's no reason. Things are just the same. Yoga just changes, things don't change, or the dance, for dancer also, but it just changes the way you look at the things that are happening around you. How did that wonderful change happen? It's so gradual, and it's so wonderful that you realize it. If you're a practitioner of yoga or any other discipline, you realize that it's a change which is so subtle, which happens over the years. Now, how does it happen? The explanation came to me when I read this particular article in Time magazine of year 2003. They have a mystical point of view, and there's a Western, which is a Western point of view, and you have Eastern, which is a mystical point of view. Now, the Eastern point of view says that we have these 8 chakras. They're not physical entities, it's something which is very, very notional that we have in our body. And the Western view says, that's the scientific view, yes, these are the energy hubs which correspond to the different organs of the body. So when you're performing these asanas or the dance, what you're doing is you're actually activating these energy hubs by bending forward, the inversion, by squeezing, by expanding, by turning, by twist. All these organs are getting activated and thereby supplying fresh oxygen to your body, and therefore all those magical things happen. So they go very systematic from the top, which you go to the crown chakra, which denotes intuition, not really intuition, actually more of meditation, also intuition, which can't be seen. It's an aura that all of us have. Why do we feel good when we meet someone? Why do we feel not so good when we meet someone? It's because of the aura that person has around, or a halo that person has around, which changes. If you do yoga, it'll change. You can't notice it, but you feel it. Then, of course, you come to Agya Chakra, which I'll just name 2, 3 because it's kind of boring. So you come to Agya Chakra, which is here. It's the crown chakra, the seat of pituitary glands. So again, telepathy, intuition, and meditation. So when you're performing certain asanas, the Agya Chakra gets activated when you do your Shirshasana or when you do your forward bends. So thereby it signals the brain to secrete less stress hormones, and there's a sense of happiness. I'm sure all of you have experienced when you go and prostrate in a temple, you bend forward, you touch your head to the ground, and you feel good because you have your blood rushing here, and thereby activating your pituitary glands. Then coming to thyroid glands, then you do your halasana and you do your sarvangasana. So you again secrete less glands, these stress glands and all, and so on and so forth. Going to the heart chakras, the cardiovascular function, Anahata chakra it's called. There's certain asanas. The best one is the Surya Namaskar, which activates the heart chakra, thereby strengthening your heart muscles. And of course, the throat is also self-expressions, thyroid glands, and then heart chakra, and then you go down to your sacral and Mooladhara and all these chakras which correspond to kidney, pancreas, and your lungs, strengthening your capacity to breathe, strengthening your lungs. So the Eastern system says that you have to have a balanced breathing to enjoy good health, and the Western one says, okay, fine, your good health depends on fresh oxygen supply to all the limbs, and by practicing yoga asanas, which activate these different hubs or the energy hubs, you may and you do control certain physiological factors like your blood pressure, your body temperature, cardiovascular, and also your lungs. You strengthen your lungs, so therefore your respiratory system also is, and you may prevent injuries because it builds up your muscle tone. So this is the Western view. So all these things do happen gradually over a time, and you notice that you're a better human being, you're a healthier human beings, and maybe you don't need medicines at all. Right. And your parameters are under control, your BP is better. Well, everything improves.
Anita, you always bring
It cures what
asking a
it cures
question
what ails you.
You always bring me to asking a question which becomes trickier for Shovana ji, because then, like you said, that yoga leads to self-healing and prevention of injuries.
So does dance.
No, but I have a report which says something very contradictory. As per University of Washington, this research says, which is on stress and coping, that the injury rate for dancers in any dance, for example, a ballet company, over an 8-month period is usually 61%. Anxiety and stress while performing dance is also so much damaging that it sometimes crosses 50%. So, at the end of a rigorous dance regime which stretches beyond 6-7 months, the dancers often end up injuring themselves, hurting themselves, and often getting into a state of anxiety and stress, which is absolutely contrary to what yoga does to you over a period of 6 months. So how do you deal with
Shovana
that?
ji is going to answer the dance part, and I'll answer the other one on yoga.
First of all,
No, is it right or is it not?
no. The second part, I don't agree. The first part, yes. Most dancers, because of the continuous practice, do manage to affect certain parts of the body, and particularly the knees. And because it's overstrained. But to say, yes, but to say that that causes stress, that causes kind of mental disbalance, sorry, no. If you see any classical dancer or any classical artist, despite and in spite of the physical ailments, they are the most mentally healthy person.
Happy also.
And happier.
Very happy.
And happier.
Very happy
I
person.
really wanted you to bring this
And very happy person. And this also leads me to another part, which is connected to your earlier question, was that about the entertainment part and the sing part. Now I'll just give you a small example, which everybody quotes, and perhaps there must have been some element of truth in it. That is why, when you're talking about Tansen, that Tansen, that when he sang Rag Deepak, now why is it that many people sing Rag Deepak but are not able to light a fire? Or light even a little lamp? But Tansen sang, and he managed, the fires were lit. So much so, that after that he had to sing Rag Mel Malhar. And that was the power of his meditation, of his internalization, that the rain started pouring and put out the fire. So that is the strength of a good artist who is gone through a personal journey of elevation. Sorry. Who's gone through a personal journey of elevation, who's gone through that personal inward journey of attaining that state of Samadhi, and at the same time is able to influence the surroundings around and create that vibration, and which is responsive vibration. So I think it answers both your questions, that yes, physical ailments do come to dancers. I will be wrong to say that we don't have physical ailments. Of course, but the question is, who doesn't have physical ailments? The whole question is, how do you deal with it? If you're so stressed out, then you're not a dancer. Then you are just this thing. But a good, and you'll see all the classical dancers, they might have physical, but they are the most happy people. They are the most balanced people, and they're pursuing lives with, spreading joy around. It's spreading joy in their personality around.
Right.
So.
That explains my question really, really well. Thank you so much. Anita ji, other than Lord Shiva, who is said to be the consummate yogi, who is the other figure from mythology that you would associate as another yogi of equal epitome?
I'm going to go back to the question which you asked me earlier, that why doesn't the injuries happen in yoga?
All right.
So I'll just
You
complete that part of it also.
All right.
And in yoga, actually, I'm also tempted to add in dances and others, there's a lot of competition. So maybe it's that part of it which is external that drives you to work more than what you should and therefore cause injury. I'm just speculating. But what happens in yoga is that injuries don't happen in yoga if you are doing it the proper way and you're doing it under the guidance of a proper guru and you've learnt it, then you can continue your own practice having learnt it. Because each posture that you do has a counter posture to it. So if you expand the arm, you must contract it. So the muscles get exercised both ways, therefore diminishing any chance of injury or pull ligaments or torn ligaments or whatever you may call. And we also have relaxation in between our asanas. So you have to get, as you will see in the performance later, there's a short performance where when you're getting ready for the next asana and after having performed a particular one, done a posture, done a counter posture, you relax. You don't immediately get down to the next posture or headstand. If you're doing a headstand, then you're doing your Shashank asana also, doing the forward bend. So then the blood has gone rushing to your head and you have to sort of see to it that you normalize your metabolism before you attempt the next asana. So then therefore there is no injury that I know of which has been caused by yoga. If people say it has been, that's because they have stretched themselves too much or they have sort of not had a proper guidance. You have to listen to your body. It's the safest discipline and the most beneficial one which is ever there.
That answers the question.
Yes. And which was the second one?
Second part, I just wanted to know in one quick line, who is your favorite character from mythology who you think is ultimate yogi other than Lord Shiva?
I think the Lord Shiva is the only one who comes to my mind actually, because he's a dancer and a yogi both. And they said the mythology, there's a legend which says that each time there were 84,000 jonis are there. So each time that happened, a creature was born. A pose was similar to the nature. So most of the yoga postures, as you would see, resemble nature. The mountain pose, the tree pose, or the animals. So you have a cobra.
So a lot of relevance between.
So it's all based on the nature. So that's what the story goes. The legend has it that each time a joni was there, a posture was born.
So before we throw
there's also
and of
Krishna,
course Lord Patanjali. Sorry, coming back to Lord Patanjali. So he's another one who propagated the discipline and codified the Yoga Sutras.
Amongst the deities, there's another person who's known as the Karma Yogi. Who was a performer.
Yes.
And who was again a performer.
I think I'm guessing it quite close.
Natwar.
Yes.
Krishna.
Wow.
So we have the two of them who were great dancers as well as yogis. One is known as the Mahayogi and one is known as the Karma Yogi.
Lovely.
Okay? And on a third scale, but we don't call that person a yogi. But at the same time is imbued with all the attributes is Goddess Saraswati. She is in fact the repository of all knowledge, of wisdom, of everything. So in a way she is encapsulating all the energy and of different aspects. So but yet we don't call her a yogi. But she also, in my mind, is also symbolic of a yogi.
So before we request the house to ask questions if they have any, there's just one last question that I would like to ask you, Shovana ji, which is there was a certain phase in your life which was difficult in terms of you were suffering with certain skin disease and you had people passing catty remarks to you, people maybe not taking it in a very appreciating manner. How did dance help you as a healer, and how did yoga help you as a healer to come out of that difficult phase? Because for a dancer, the entire look, even inner beauty is one thing, but the exterior beauty is also comes of certain significance when it comes to dancing on stage in public. And to find the public getting back to you not so reciprocatory and appreciative manner could be heartening or distressing.
Well, everybody is a human being, number one. Number two, physically, according to my parents, I was quite a sickly child. So I was falling ill the whole time. But it was only dance which kept me going, and which in a way helped me to build my strength, and and keep me away from various sicknesses. But having said that, yes, at different points of my life, different ailments did strike me. And where you talked about the skin problem, yes, it did. And there were many catty remarks who came my way, but there were many beautiful remarks also, concerned remarks also. So I think it makes you understand life with all its positives and negatives. And then finally, it is how a person takes to life, deals with all the obstacles.
Right.
Maybe it was God sending me, has given me a lot, but in many different ways. But He was also testing me a lot in many different ways.
Wow.
And
That's so beautiful. It's extreme.
And
Very
so
good.
that test, and it is a question of my mental framework. Do I succumb to it and become depressed and lock myself up, or do I face it? And for me, the whole thing was, I love dance. For me, that is my life, my atma, my soul, my breath. And so, can you live without your breath?
Absolutely not.
And the day I live without my breath, I'll die. And that will be the last day when I'm unable to dance. I will be a dead person. And that is what, so that attitude, and people that, if you are comfortable with yourself the way you are, people are comfortable with you.
So true. And I think that's so perfectly put. Any creative art, whether it is dance, whether it is cooking or gardening or writing, like I'm a writer, I can completely relate to it because somewhere the fabric is the same. It is creative art. It is actually like breathing. So if one doesn't do it, one doesn't exist. So that was such a beautiful note. Ladies and gentlemen, although we are talking about dance and yoga, but Shovana ji has spent many books, out of which there's one favorite book of mine, Meandering Pastures of Memories. You must grab it and read it. It's such a beautiful memoir of a journey in all truth. And with this, I request the house, if there are any questions on board, then we can take it. Couple of questions, just one or two, because we have an excellent performance lined up by the disciples of Shovana ji and Anita ji. Yes, do we have a volunteer with a mic, or should I? Is there somebody from the Times?
Thanks to the panel for a very enlightening discussion. So my question is that there was a point regarding that yoga is like the theoretical part, and like maybe dance is the practical aspect of it. So what I wanted to know is that is it true that if a dancer practices some yoga, so that person can become a better dancer, or is it just only the mudras, just learning the mudras, different mudras very perfectly, that makes a good dancer? And the second thing is that because like I said that yoga is about the theoretical aspect, so there was another point that can a dancer become a good yogi, or can so is it possible the other way around? Can a yogi become a very good dancer? Because it's like only the postures and different. So is it possible the other way around?
Who do you want to answer question?
To both of them. They can.
I'll answer the first part and she'll answer the second part. Whether the yogi can become a dancer, you answer. Okay, you start and I'll you go ahead. Go ahead.
I've yet to take dancing lessons. So but my contention is, when a dancer is doing a dance, which you will see when we have a demo, she's actually doing yoga postures also. It's a yoga posture in movement. You will see a lot of similarities between the postures. So she's performing dancing.
His question was, can a yogi become a dancer?
Difficult to say. But a dancer is a yogi. Whether yogi is a dancer or not is something which is a personal choice. She can be, of course.
To answer the first part of your question, what makes a good dancer? Whether it is only learning, those are skills. There's a difference. You learn a skill, the technique of all the, but what you have to do is how do you make it effortless? Where it's got to be part of your being to be a good dancer. The whole thing is about internalization of all, like language. It was a skill that you learned when you were young. Writing, that is a skill that you learned. But you have, it's become part of you. So today you're able to express yourself in whatever language you're comfortable in, or whatever you're writing in. So for me, dance is my language. For a good dancer, when the dance becomes effortless, that becomes a language. It's a language, which also encompasses yoga. Yoga is not something separate. It is a complete discipline. You have to, all the 8, which Patanjali has talked about, the 8 stages. It is talking about all the 8 stages which each one of us is practicing in life. Each one in our normal daily chores are practicing in life. The only thing is, when you're talking about Samadhi, if you're happy doing what you are, as she just said, she was happy cooking, when she's losing herself in it, that is that little point. When if something happens, she'll say, she doesn't hear it because she's so involved in it. That is that minimum point, that momentary point of Samadhi. So each one of us in our daily life are going through it. Yoga is not something different. That is what she has said. That is what I'm saying. But my language is dance. Her language is the language of yoga. But yoga, per se, is practiced by everyone in life. The question is to what degree? The different aspects. That is the difference. What aspect that you are it has to be completely harmonized and in balanced. There has to be judicious balance in everything. Then only you'll come to that last stage of Samadhi.
That explains?
I actually wanted to know the technical things, like in asana they have different postures, or like they have mudras.
So,
Mudras.
Right.
If a dancer does not know the mudras, can the dancer be a good dancer?
So what we can do is the authors are available even after this session outside of this room. So you can
for
take
example,
the
just to, the mudras is part of your skill, your technique that you're learning. Now, everything, if this is it, even yoga-wise, everything, this is the fire. This represents the fire. This is the air. This is ether. This is earth. And this is water. Now, every mudra, even yoga-wise, is actually stimulating certain nerves of yours, which goes to stimulate the chakras. So it is not only the mudras that a dancer has to learn. The dancer has to learn both the mudras and the different asanas. I can just sit and also do it, but I'm not really a dancer. I'm just an Abhinaya artist. But if I'm performing and I'm a dancer in the true sense, then I have to get up and perform, plus which means there's also mudra in it. There's asana in it, there's mudra in it, there's pranayam in it, and there's yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, all the 8 aspects in it.
Okay, so we'll take just one last question. Please be very crisp, and it should be just one question. Okay, maybe from the lady. Come up, could you come up in front?
Oh, Mike.
Good evening, ma'ams. I would like to know, both in yoga and dance, the best ways to cope with stress. The best ways to deal with stress in yoga and dance.
It's a progression. Yoga is a progression of various asanas followed by the breathing exercises, the poses and the counter poses. Just to take to it and it'll happen. Not only will the stress, because all the ailments that we have today have some component of stress in it or the other. So this is something you have to practice. Doing the different breathing exercises, Alom Vilom, Kapalbhati and Bhastrika. But before that, you need to practice the physical postures, the asanas, before you come to your pranayam, because that's the proper way, correct way of doing yoga. And of course, as you practice, I don't know whether you do it, but those of you who have done it will feel that they are not as stressed as they used to be. The change automatically happens because of the scientific reasons which I have explained to you earlier. And not only that, it takes you even forward, which Shovana ji also spoke about, where she gets lost and she doesn't know what's happening to her because you're one with your creation. And that also is mentioned in one of in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, that's the fourth Kavalya, that, and she also gave the example of Tansen who could light a fire. You can acquire mystic powers when you reach that stage also. You know, it does happen. You are so internalized in your discipline as a dancer, as a yogi, that stress is a byproduct. You don't have to work at reducing stress. It just happens. It's a byproduct of doing yoga and stimulating your energy hubs. It will just automatically happen. So all those things, I just heard Chetan talk about what is your daily motivational dose. You don't have to look for any doses. It just automatically happens. I don't know how many of you practice yoga. I'm a strong advocate of yoga and dance or any kind of physical fitness regime. Because stress just goes out of the window to some extent. Like I said, things don't change. What changes is the way you look at them and the way you cope with things.
I would say that if you do something with your heart in it, with passion in it, and not as something which has been thrust upon you. If you love what you do, if you're passionate about what you do, and your heart is in what you do, you'll never feel the stress.
Wow.
You'll never feel the stress. But if you're not passionate about it, your heart is not in it, you will feel the stress.
I think that's a brilliant note to call this session a wrap. Put your heart and soul and everything, your entire effort into it. You'll never feel stressed, you'll feel happy, and you'll always want to do more and more. What a brilliant note to end a conversation with. And with this, I request Shovana ji to kindly explain the second part, the last 10 minutes of the session, which is supposed to be a demonstrative session. There's a small performance by the disciples of Shovana ji and Anita ji. I would request them to kindly come up on stage, and the Times team to please help up with the stage arrangement.
While they are removing everything for the demonstration, may I just say that what you'll be seeing in the demonstration is what we have been talking about the whole time. And that is that you'll see the yoga postures as well as the dance movements. And that how the two of them are completely interlinked.